Welcome, everybody. We're going to be talking about the Copenhagen Major. I got a little bit of the land flu, so bear with me. We're going to recap what happened. Probably no highlights or anything in this one too much, but just kind of talk about where teams were expected to be versus what they did, who's looking good going into the next split, yada, yada, yada. We'll take a look at the power rankings and all that to figure out where everyone kind of lands nowadays. So let's get right into it. Let's go right into the what happened, and then we'll kind of like work our way through it with the power rankings and all of that. So let's take a look. We got Gentlemates obviously going 3-0 in the Swiss, or let's start at the bottom actually, because why not? We'll talk about these teams first. Limitless, not a big surprise here. Not winning the game, not a huge surprise. They did play a show match on Greybeard's stream versus Elevate after Saturday's games, I believe it was, and they 4-0'd Elevate. Does that show match matter? I don't know. I would probably have them ranked in the bottom anyway, because who knows, what's going on there. Probably people are just having fun. I wouldn't really be concerned too much with the show match, but it does show that they are a little bit closer than you might expect. But in their games themselves, I don't think we can see them here. Like, I wish you could see the results from that one, but we'd have to look through. It wasn't great. 3-0, 8-2, 5-1. And it continues 3-2 in overtime, at least 2-0, 5-1. So they had won 1-goal game, and then finally versus Luminosity, won 1-goal game there as well. You can't see the whole thing, but it was 2-1 in that game one. So Limitless, kind of expected. I don't think anyone had them higher ranked than the bottom, but they'll get more experience and they'll move on. Elevate, I guess the only one was the Pioneers. I think people expected or could have expected Elevate maybe taking a series off of them. They already removed LCT from the roster, so they're already making roster moves, trying to get ready for the Major 2 split. But Elevate Pioneers, I think you could have went either way. I think it was because of Pioneers how bad they were losing. I think a lot of people flip-flopped here and probably had Elevate winning that match, but Pioneers come out on top. So hats off to them. But they didn't really do anything, literally nothing outside of that. Pioneers, I mean, like it's an OC2, you expect them in 14th, 15th, or 16th. That's where they led. Probably one minor surprise is Rule 1 down here at 13. If we look at my power rankings, I have them pretty low. I have them 11th. So I was kind of feeling like they're kind of aging out. It almost feels like Khalid and Ahmad are just like people are catching up to them, right? Or past them, obviously. And I worry about even split 2 for them if other teams catch up to them. So we'll see how that all plays out. But losing the power is pretty big. That was in round 4. Let's take a look. Very, very close match. Overtime's aplenty here, so it was back and forth. But Power does get the win there, so hats off to them. And we talked about Power kind of like the only way to get top 8 is they're going to have to do 2 upsets, right? They're going to have to upset in the 1-2 round, which they did. And they're going to have to upset again afterwards, and that did not happen. So Power losing out to G2 there. But at least they probably move up these power rankings slightly, right? I guess. So I think if I went into the next splits major, I still honestly probably would have MENA 2 higher than OCE 1. Just because, the problem is when you now go back to your region, Power's getting very limited practice still, and the other regions are closer to each other, so they should get better, slightly better than Power, in my opinion. So I think I would still probably have Power right around 13. I don't think I would actually move them all that much. I do get that, right after this event, you have to move them up just because they won or whatever. But if we go into the split 2 major, I still don't have a lot of faith there. OG Illuminati was an interesting one in round 4. I felt like this one was a momentum game. Illuminati came out of the 0-2 round, so they won 3-0, and they got the momentum to take down OG, and OG lost to Vitality. I think you could flip-flop these teams a decent amount. I guess the only thing that was nice to see was that Luminosity later took Vitality to game 5 while OG got swept, and they got beat hard in that series. 5-1, 3-2, 1-0. All right, 2 1-goal games. But still. Luminosity, you got to rank them ahead. I don't think it's a huge deal. just slightly ahead. So Luminosity would probably move from like my 12 to probably 10th, and OG would flip, or maybe OG might get 11. It depends on Rule 1. Because the hard part with OCE is like, yeah, Power wins that matchup, and then they get perfectly swept out of the tournament. Not only did they do it against G2, Pioneers also, it was a perfect sweep to lose in the tournament. So I'm like, I still don't have much faith in OCE. That was one question we had. It was like, are they back? Like, I didn't think they were. I don't think they still are. I would still have them ranked relatively low in the grand scheme of things. But Rule 1 probably drops down to 12 at the very least, and then you could probably put the two NA teams maybe between them. Because OG, they lost to Limitless, or they beat Limitless, I should say. Lost to Vitality and Falcons and Luminosity. You know, like two tough opponents, and then Luminosity. And Luminosity lost to Furia, Complexity. They beat Limitless, OG, and lose to Vitality. Now, I think Complexity is pretty safe as the number 9 seed. I think they were probably the best of the rest. So Complexity, I think they kind of own that spot pretty well here. So I think we were spot on with number 9. Then the top 8, honestly, I think everyone had this top 8 in some fashion. But there is definitely a huge gap. Like, they went undefeated against the bottom 8. I think Complexity is probably the only one that I would be like, yeah, maybe they have a shot right now at the very least. But we'll see what, NA 3 and 4s come out next time and all that. And even MENA too. But with this top 8, it was just what order do you put them in, right? I had gen.g above G2. They did beat G2. I was very happy about that. But then obviously G2 did well in the bracket, so you got to at least flip them. As we look here, like gen.g took out Power, took out G2, lost to Fury in 5, lost to K-Corp in 4, beat Complexity in 4. So they beat G2, a top 8 team. They beat 2 of those borderline bottom 8 teams, or closer to the top. I don't think Power is a great win personally, but still. It's good to see gen.g actually. Like, that wasn't bad. Like, they go 2-0, and obviously then you're going to have a really tough matchups. They lose to Furia, which is maybe not expected. We just didn't know exactly where Furia was. Very close series, though. And then losing to K-Corp is no slouch either. Then in the bracket, they lose in 7 games to Gentlemates. So, like, you can't fault them too much. I think, let's begin. So I think gen.g would probably rank like 7th-ish, I guess. Vitality didn't really have a great Swiss. They didn't really need to. They lost to the Falcons and Furia. They beat teams they were supposed to beat, but one was very, very close. But they did at least get the win versus Furia. But Furia is one of those teams that's like, we kept saying on the desk, like, they don't have to play defense. They can just play offense all they want until they have to play defense. When they had to play defense, it wasn't pretty. And that was that Vitality series. They couldn't get their offense going. And that's the problem with Furia is, like, you worry that, like, yes, they can be best in the world. But if the offense isn't clicking, I feel like if they have an off day, they're not going to beat a lot of these other top 8 teams. While some of the other top 8 teams, I feel like if they have, like, a slightly off day, they can find a way to win, if that makes sense. That's how I'm kind of feeling about Furia right now. So I don't really know where to rank Furia. Like, Furia beat Luminosity, Vitality, and gen.g, so 2 top 8 teams. In 5 games each, though, so it could have been a drastically different story there. Like, Furia is the hard one to rank, I think. Let's just keep going here. Vitality, I wasn't too impressed with them. They did get the win, though, versus Furia. But they did come close versus G2, but that was also probably what I would say the easier side of the bracket. Vitality, I think, is clearly 4th in Europe right now, in my opinion. I understand they were closer to G2 than BDS was, but I have more faith in BDS to bounce back in Split 2 than maybe Vitality. Obviously, this is before roster changes. I don't know if anything is going to happen there. So I think I would still, like, if we're looking to the future, right? Split 2, where do you rank the 4 European teams? Who's going to do better, right? Based on these rosters, because that's where you have to go on. I personally would have K-Corp, number 1, then Gentlemates, then BDS, then Vitality, in that order. So I get it. Like, K-Corp lost, and technically you do have to power rank Gentlemates first. But I think if you were like a bet man or something and you're looking at split two, like who's going to get the most points, I think you would take K Corp over Gentlemates anyway, in my opinion. Let me know if I'm wrong or if you think of something else. But Gentlemates, it was an land, historic land. EU4 seed the first time they ever won. True underdogs the entire way. Honestly, like every match, at least in terms of the casters picking, Gentlemates were underdogs except for round one, probably. Yeah, round one versus rule one, they were favorites. At least, like probably barely favorites according to the casters, at least. But I had them as favorite. BDS, they were underdogs there. They were underdogs versus Falcons as well. Then they were underdogs, or not underdogs versus Gen G, but I thought that was the closest match that was going to happen in this round. So they were probably slight favorites there. Then they were underdogs versus K Corp. And then G2 Gentlemates, they were underdogs in terms of the picks, at least on casters, for the casters, but I probably would have put them slight favorites, but that's just me. It's still the NA1 seed, so I could see why, but that one's like a coin flip. This one was a slight favorite. So a lot of their games were kind of underdog matches. So hats off to them, though. A lot of one-goal games. I think 20 of their 21 wins were one-goal games. They obviously played a lot in the bracket, so one goal could have made a huge difference. And that's where, like, they barely squeaked by. That's also why I'm not, like, incredibly confident that they are the best team in the world, necessarily. I think I would still probably rank K-Corp above them, which I know is probably unfair. But, because what do you need to do, right? So I think I would have K-Corp 1 in terms of what's going to happen in Split 2, right? K-Corp 1, Gentlemates 2, maybe Falcons 3. Or I'm sorry, Gentlemates 2, Falcons 3, 4, probably G2, 5, maybe BDS, 6. At this point, it gets a little sketchy. 6, maybe Vitality, then Fury at 7, Gen G at 8. Is probably what I would have it. But the beautiful thing is I think all 8 of those teams have a chance to win majors now. And we're coming off a year where, or even 2 years, honestly, of like favorites always win, right? We always had like the team to win a major had to have won a regional before. The only time it didn't happen was fall 21-22 with BDS. But BDS was coming off the COVID era where they were so dominant. So it wasn't a huge, like, oh my God, I can't believe they won. This was the first tournament in a very long time where it was a true underdog. And even when they were making their run, people didn't believe, right? So, Gentlemates, hats off to them, but kind of opening up that door for like, all right, we're getting parity, which is nice. I think one of the major questions was, would the Europe gap be bigger or smaller? I think it's definitely smaller based on these teams. The talent consolidation across the board has really helped all these other regions. I think one of the questions we didn't really get to answer was Furia versus Falcons. Like, who is actually better? We kind of talked about it in a previous video where I was like, so my guess was Falcons would be better. Then we'd have the 2 SAM teams and then Rule 1. And based off the results, I think we got there. Falcons obviously lose, but I think you have to rank them ahead of Furia. They had a very close match against K-Corp. They also beat K-Corp once, which is pretty big. So I think Falcons are definitely like top 3 in the world right now, in my opinion. You could argue G2's 3, Falcons 4. That's fine. But G2, like, very mediocre in Swiss. They weren't great, and then they just found their form when they needed it most, which is great, though. You want that in the bracket stage. So you have to give them credit there. But again, look at how close all these matches were. It's like we're very, very close right now, which is a great thing. Because, again, last World Championship, literally, I think the entire top 15-ish, like the last 15 matches were all favorites of that one. I think one was like FaZe lost to Moist, but FaZe was imploding. So, like, that was pretty much a favorite anyway for Moist. So, Favorites are no longer winning every single time. It looks like everyone is getting a lot closer, which is great to see. Gentlemates, hats off to them. A very close victory, but they got the job done. They iced it up when it mattered most. But again, like if we're talking split 2, who gets the most points in Europe? I think I would probably bank on K Corp still. Honestly, for NA, I don't know. Because Gen.g now has beaten G2, what is it, 3 times in a row? So, like, that one I think is a coin flip. It could go either way. Like, G2 really showed up at LAN, but Gen.g kind of figured them out towards the back half of the split. So I think you could 1A, 1B either way. I'll probably, just because I know everyone else is going to pick G2, I'll probably go on the Gen.g side of, like, who gets most points by the end. After that in NA, it's kind of wide open. It's going to come down to roster moves. I don't think LG and OG are necessarily, like, the teams necessarily. It could be them, but it's kind of open. Falcons will definitely dominate Mina yet again. Furious should dominate again as well in Sam, so I'm not too worried about them. Elevate's a question mark because Gaming Gladiators are right on their heels. And then Power, they've been so dominant, you expect them to continue as well. So see how it all plays out. Let me know what you guys think of, like, who is going to get the most points in Split 2. Do you think I'm crazy not having the mates number 1? Let me know, but these were obviously a previous Power rankings. But it was a great tournament. It was a lot of fun to watch. And we won the prediction contest for the casters. It was a 3-way tie. Me, Lemon, and Cole. So that's 2/3 NA. So obviously NA is better. NA is on top. Let's go. She's from Canada, so we can't say USA, but she lives in USA now. So maybe we can. But that'll do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. We'll have some more videos. I did a Q&A on Twitter. And I'm going to parse through those questions and see what I can answer and all that and make videos based on those questions. So if you have any more questions, you can throw it on the Twitter or throw it here on YouTube, and we'll try and answer them. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.